Mike, the topics we are going to get into today, I think, are so important for every solopreneur out there. But before we dive in, we want to ask an icebreaker question that we ask all of our guests. And that is, what do you wish you would have known before you jumped into this crazy world of solopreneurship?
I wish I'd have known how crazy I really was. I don't mind taking risk. I don't mind being, jumping first. I mean, I'm going to be the first one if we go on vacation together that said, if there's a cliff to jump off, I will be the first one to say, let's do it. And then I'm going to be the first one to do it. The second one to, the first one to repeat. But I just wish I'd have known like how crazy the world of entrepreneur really is. It is the Wild West. It is the last great frontier. It's the place that freedom exists. And I mean, and you could do and be whatever you want to. There's a saying I often say that the only thing spotless that we have is the future. Being an entrepreneur allows you to create that future.
I love that. Well, and I was talking about the topic of the day. We're going to dive into the financial world, which some people, speaking of the future and like the unknown, some people hear that topic and they run for the hills because they're afraid of it. And some people are like, I need to know everything. And we love having financial experts on the show because often you guys have different takes on different things. So from your take, I want to ask you, like, what is this paralysis penalty that you talk about? And how does it specifically show up for solopreneurs who delay those financial decisions, like I was just saying, because they're so overwhelmed or aren't sure of who to trust even?
Well, I think I would like to, if I want to answer that one, but I want to answer one other thing right off the top of the bat. If we're talking directly to solopreneurs who have an entrepreneurial spirit, if you're going to get financial advice from somebody, get financial advice from somebody who is an entrepreneur, right? The person at the bank, the employee at Merrill Lynch, the JP Morgan employee, they just don't understand you. They don't pay the bills. They get a check every 2 weeks, right? They're there to sell you, but they don't understand the nature of like what a true entrepreneur is. The first thing you should do is find an entrepreneur financial professional, somebody that signs the front of the check, not the back of the check, somebody that pays the light bill, somebody that owns their own building, and somebody that understands what it takes to struggle to make payroll or even not taking pay that month for yourself. So, somebody else gets paid. That's the first thing. But the paralysis penalty is something that we talk about all the time because and most entrepreneurs don't suffer from this. They suffer from like being hyperactive when it comes to making decisions. But the paralysis penalty is being presented with an opportunity, and from lack of education or lack of trust that it's the right thing for you, you do nothing. You just sit there, you're paralyzed. Where that happens mostly in the world of financial planning, and especially to entrepreneurs, is when it comes to tax planning. Taxes are the thing that will drive entrepreneurs out of business. It will just, if you don't hit a payroll tax, if you don't pay your social security tax, if you don't pay quarterly estimates, and then all of a sudden you come to April of the next year and you're like, holy cow, where do I get the money now to pay Uncle Sam? Where you got the money all along the way. You just didn't realize as an entrepreneur, you need to start, a third of it is the government's, a third of it is yours, a third of it's the business, right? And so every dollar you bring in as an entrepreneur is not yours. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you break that paralysis penalty and you can actually go to real growth.
So what do you think some of the most overlooked tax strategies are that solopreneurs can start implementing even today? I mean, I feel like the new year rolled over and I already started thinking about tax season. And I'm like, so what can they be thinking about to reduce taxes without like super complicated structures or anything?
Well, the ones that entrepreneurs forget about, and your listeners may say right away, I know about these, but they forget about like the home office deduction. They forget to record all of their expenses. They forget to have, some kind of tool that says, I just went to Office Max and I spent $37 and you forget to put it down. They also mix they also mix a personal credit card and a business credit card way too often. Like, the best thing you do is if you're a business owner, get a business credit card, get a business account, run everything through there because it makes tax planning a whole lot easier. But here's some things that most entrepreneurs don't know about. It's too late. Uh, if you're a solopreneur, you can save more money tax deferred using a solo K than any other employee of another company out there. And if you're a true solopreneur and you're married, even though your spouse may or may not be in the company, you can actually do, a solo K for you and your spouse through that business. So you could actually save a lot of money for your future. The number this year, I think $77,000. So you could put away $154,000 if you're really successful and do something really cool. So that's the first thing, saving for your future to help save taxes today. But then there's some really cool things that solopreneurs can do. Have you guys ever had a guest talk about the Augusta rule at all? Do you know what the Augusta rule is?
No, I
Doesn't
was
ring a
like, Joe,
bell.
you would remember more than I would.
So, Joe, are you a golfer at all?
I am not. No, I am. I tried it. I was terrible. I tend to like things that involve more sweat.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. Well, there's a tournament that happens every year in Augusta, Georgia called the Masters. Now, Augusta is not known for being the hotel mecca of the world by any stretch of the imagination. They have one event, it happens 1 week a year, and then Augusta turns into a sleepy town all of a sudden. But a senator a while back got with some people in Augusta and got something passed through the IRS code that allows for residents of Augusta to rent their home out for 14 days per year, the week of the Masters and the week after the Masters. Think about it. So for 14 days a year, they rent their house out and it's tax free. Okay. As a business owner, you could do the same thing. You could rent your home out for 14 days a year. It doesn't have to be consecutive like the Masters. You could have 14 mastermind sessions at your house. You could have 14 client parties at your house. If you have contract employees, instead of going to rent a conference room or going off site where you're spending a lot of money to rent your home out and you could take money from your business into your personal name tax free. There's some structure around that you have to do, but it is an amazing way. Like in 2024, my wife and I were able to get $192,000 out of our businesses, tax free.
But question on that. So when I do that and I take it personally, take it out of the business and put it personally, that's taxable income to me personally, right?
It's not because you're using it under the Augusta rule.
Okay. So the Augusta rule applies everywhere, not just Augusta.
That's exactly right.
Got it.
That's exactly right. But it's out there. There's some other things out there. You've got like the Section 179 deduction about buying a car that's over 6,000 pounds. That's typically reserved for like people that move heavy material and all that. But if you're a business owner, you drive to not the same place every day, you could do the same thing. You could buy a car, let the business buy it, you could depreciate it. There's 5 or 6 other tax loopholes like that the solopreneur, business owner has an opportunity to use that most people don't. My wife and I took advantage of one that is the greatest one out there. We're actually residents in Puerto Rico. We've actually moved to Puerto Rico. It's where our driver's license is. It's where we spend the most time. It's where we are closer connected to than anywhere else. It's where we give money to charity. And because we're there, money that is made in the mainland United States that is imported into Puerto Rico avoids federal taxation.
Huh.
Right. And we only have to pay like a small tax in Puerto Rico.
Interesting. Question: what about Subchapter S elections?
Oh my gosh. That is one, Joe, I'm glad you asked that, right? Because like I went from 0 to 60 and blew through 3 red lights, and that was the Subchapter S, right? So like Subchapter S and creating a payroll for yourself saves a significant amount of Social Security and Medicare tax. Paying yourself like a reasonable salary, right, on a payroll that it then allows you to take above that payroll distributions from the company that are not subject to, Social
self-employment
Security.
tax.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's a huge savings, by the way. That's, when you do the employee and the employer part of that, and then you add back the Medicare side of that, that's between 14 and 16% that you could save just by electing Subchapter S and acting like a business running the payroll.
Yeah, I mean, we should point out that there are some things that come with that. You have to have an annual meeting and, file some paperwork and things. But, I mean, I look at like Zen Business, they'll do all this stuff for you for pretty much peanuts,
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, if you're a solopreneur, who are you having the meeting with? Right. I mean, it's you yourself, right?
That's right.
I mean, like we technically could have, 3 business meetings right now, put them on the notes, and it'll be recorded right now, right? So it's a requirement. It's a checkbox. Anytime there's a loophole, anytime there's something you have to do, there's some requirements you have to fulfill to actually make them work.
So, Mike, you just seem like you have a treasure box of all these like little things people can be taking out of it. And Joe, you're asking such great questions. I wish I was asking these great questions, but I am one of those people where it sounds like you're speaking Chinese for a lot of this. And I know that I need a lot of hand holding in my own business. And so for people, you said it, people trust car salespeople often more than they trust financial advisors in any way, shape, or form. How do they find the good ones? Like if they, like Joe used to talk about Zen Business, but if they want to work with a real person, one-on-one, all that, what should they be looking for? And you said they need to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, Joe probably has a lot of great opinions on this too, but like my opinion is everybody has problems. And if you can articulate what your problems are and you feel like the solution being given to you genuinely solves your problem, you found somebody that's right. Unfortunately, we get this feeling, and I don't think business owners should trust their gut, because a gut is something that will get you in trouble, right? A lot. But what you should do is trust, is trust like what feels right to you as you go through the process. And so if you have problems and you feel like you're getting the same solution that everybody else is getting, and it just kind of like puts lipstick on a pig for your problems, then you need to go find somewhere else. I mean, if somebody was experiencing heart pains, right? They're not going to let the ER doctor necessarily do the surgery on you. They're going to wait for a cardiologist unless it's an absolutely critical emergency, right? They're going to wait for the specialist, the cardiologist. We all have a specialist, a financial specialist that we need to find to help us grow to the next level. In those one size fits all, those those triage, the ones that do the same thing over and over, in the financial world are sitting in banks and investment companies. They're not out living the entrepreneur world like your listeners are.
Like, can I tell you a story? Because I think it ties back to this. So a while back, I sold a business, had a nice windfall. I took half of the money and I gave it to my preferred financial advisor, and I took the other half and I gave it to somebody that was more what you might call corporate, like you describe. And because they had a team had invested in this business, so I wanted to thank them. And I gave them like 3 years. And in the one with the entrepreneurial guy, the guy that I had identified using kind of what you just described, it was crazy. I killed it. I just killing it. And the other one that was what Robert Kiyosaki calls diversified. It was just that check the boxes. I actually lost money. I actually had a lower principal after 3 years than when I started. And I basically said, guys, I gave you a shot, closed it out, moved it over. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you have to find that person. I don't want to be in index funds. It's just not me, right? I want to be thinking hard about what I'm investing in. And you got to find that person that's willing to do that with you.
I mean, I would agree with that. Like if you want to live life, right, passively. I mean, most entrepreneurs don't want to live life passively. Why do you invest passively? I wrote a book called The One of a Kind Financial Plan. It really inspires people to kind of live a one of a kind life. And it is like you said, Joe, you have to take more control of your money, right? If you don't, it will control you. It will influence the decisions you make later in life. And sometimes the decision you have the first decision is the most important decision. It's who do you trust? Who does it feel right? And that's a really big decision that shouldn't be solved in one 30-minute meeting. It should be multiple meetings where you feel that you've been heard, your problems are clearly laid out, the problems you didn't even think about have come to the surface, and you have a plan to address the biggest expenses and the biggest risk you have in your life. And that's where our firm looks to do that. That's where I look to educate people. And then like I even coach financial advisors, like ones that are looking to get out of those big box and advisory firms into doing something on their own. I coach them to be unique and one of a kind. And that's what because we are going to be more of an entrepreneur uh, economy, even more so than we are now. We're going to be that even more so in 5 years and 20 years and 50 years, right? There's going to be Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft, and then a bunch of small businesses, right? And those three companies I mentioned, there may be another one in there, but those three businesses are going to do pharmacy, banking, retail sales, car sales. They're going to do it all, and then we're going to be left behind on the entrepreneur side to serve our communities or to solve a specific niche that like we are passionate about solving.
So for people who are just starting out as a solopreneur, and like you were saying, it's the wave of the future, it's already happening right now. What are some of the basic, not taxes, but just some of the basic financial systems that they should put in place once their business starts generating some income?
Well, I mean, like if you have a specialty, like you obviously see as a solopreneur, something that you could solve, whether that's a real estate agent, you know, opening a new restaurant, whatever it is, you see a problem that you could solve. You need to spend a little bit of time up front learning about finances, right? Whether that is like I teach a personal financial planning course, whether that's like finding somebody like me who in 9 hours over 6 weeks, you can get like some tools to be able to go find, to ask the right questions. But then you need to start acting like a business from the beginning and realizing that like if nobody was ever going to take my class, I'll give you like a sneak peek in 30 seconds. Treat every dollar that comes in as a third of it is not yours. It's somebody else's. It's taxes or it's going to be some deduction that you take. A third of it needs to be for growth, and a third of it is yours to live on. And if you live within that basic framework of a third, a third, a third, right? Then you're already 90% further along than most business owners who start a business. Uh, then what I would say is hire or get a really good tax planner because that's the biggest expense you're going to have in your business that can be controlled, right? It is by far and away a controllable expense if you know how to dot the I's, cross the T's, and do things. So get a tax planner. And then as you're growing, make sure you have a really good, and these are, you know, bakers serve a purpose for a reason. Get a good baker, right? Somebody who you could go if you're trying to build a 7, 8 figure business, get a really good baker you could see face to face. If you're going to be smaller than that, like a 5 or 6 figure business, you could do that through americanexpress.com, right? They have people right there that are there for you to call. But like if you could get educated, a tax planner, and then a banker, then you're ready to really start building your business and building wealth because there's a lot of things I can't tell people how to do with their business. I can't tell somebody who makes a widget how to make their widget better. I can't tell a plumber how to do his job better. I can't tell a doctor how to build his business from scratch. But boy, all that other stuff, I could tell you exactly how to stay out of trouble. I can show you the pitfalls. I can cause a lot of the failures that I personally have had in business and I've seen others have. I can keep you out of those failures. And that's part of like being in community and learning together. is how you do that.
Well, so we're talking about the beginning, and I saw this on your one pager, and so I was very intrigued by this story about like what lesson have you learned from your earliest business experience selling sandwiches with your grandma, I believe. Um,
It was.
College
Collard
sandwiches.
sandwiches. How does that directly translate to modern solopreneur businesses? I feel like there's a story here we need to hear.
I didn't realize, right, when I was doing with my grandmother, building her business, I didn't realize what I was doing. And I feel like that's what a lot of entrepreneurs and people get in the business world. They don't know in the first 1, 3, 5 years. They just don't know what they're doing. But what I didn't know and what I've been able to reflect on almost 40 years later is my grandmother innovated out of necessity. She did not want to start a business selling collard sandwiches. She wanted to be the wife to the love of her life, Walter, who was my grandfather, but he got cancer. Life happened. And he unfortunately passed away way sooner than he should have. And so here she is at 64, the breadwinner, her stud, as she called him her stud, like literally that was her man. Her stud passed away. He brought in the money, he provided her comfort and safety, and she not and they owned a small business themselves. He owned a construction company. They didn't exactly trust the government. So they didn't pay into the social security system like they should have. They didn't have a 401k, right? Because they were products of the Great Depression. Not directly, but they were old enough to remember the Great Depression. So they lived in a cash system. Well, the cash after my grandfather passed away started running out. And so my grandmother did the only thing she knew how to do, and she made these collard sandwiches that he loved. I remember the first time she did it, I was with her. We went to a job site where he used to work. She showed up and she got all these hugs and people were like, "Hey, how are you doing?" She goes, "Well," she said to them, "I need to pay the Bell South bill, but I didn't want to ask for the money. So I made you guys lunch. Will you guys buy these from me?" She literally sold them out of love, right? She fed somebody. They all gave her $5 or $10, right? At a time, by the way, that you could go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac for 99 cents, right? So this was a sacrifice. She literally counted up that money. We went down to the Bell South building. She walked into the door, paid the bill with cash, right? She came out, she had like $7 left, and she said, "We're gonna do this again tomorrow." And we did that over and over again to pay bills, right? And so I learned how to sell when I was 11, 12, 13 years old because I would walk up to people and say, "Yeah, my granny made this today. Would you like to have this for lunch? Or would you like to take some home for dinner?" And I learned sales through that process, but we did it because we had to. We had to pay bills, right? We had to put food on our table. It's so simple, right? People may be saying, "Well, a collard sandwich, what in the heck is that thing?" It's just cornmeal that's deep fried and made into a bun with collards that come right out of the garden that she would put ham hock and I don't even know what her secret recipe was, but it was good. And she would put them in between, she'd wrap them up and we go sell them. And she eventually made that business into a fair business, almost like a state fair. If you guys ever been to a state fair, like the oddities of the state fair, her oddity was a collard sandwich. And I was at fairs with her when I was 14, 15 years old, where she would sell 2,000 collard sandwiches on a weekend. Just crazy stuff, right? But that was the first business. We counted every penny, we counted every nickel, we counted every dime, and we recorded it on a spiral bound notebook paper, and we stored the money in Folgers coffee cans until the cabinets got so full of cans that we had nothing to do. She would put the biggest bills, the 20, 50s, and 100s, she would line them, she would wrap them, she would put them in tinfoil and write liver across of it and put them in the freezer. Because she said, if anybody ever comes to rob us, they're not taking the liver. That was her thing. And so, I mean, there's just so much wisdom, so much uncommon small town wisdom that happened that I saw firsthand. And, I loved it. I loved sales. I loved helping her. Like I went to school and I would come home and I would say, "Granny, let's go." Like that's what got me up every day. I did what I had to so I could do what I wanted to. And I loved it. And so I went to college. Along the way, I met this. We eventually opened our first bank account because the cupboards got too big. And so we went to the bank, and there was a guy in there that was wearing a suit who I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world, right? And the only other person I knew that wore suits at the time were preacher men, and I did not want to be a preacher man. But I wanted to wear a suit. So I asked him like, how did you get the job in the bank? And he told me I went to college and I did this, and we had many conversations. So that's what I did. Nobody else in my family had gone to college, but I did it. I went to college so I could be a banker. What I didn't realize though was that this wild journey, I was never meant to be the person in the bank counting the money. I was meant to be something greater than that. That's like I learned that from my granny, that entrepreneurial spirit. And I took what I learned is 12 years working for Wall Street banks to be able to come out on this other side as like the next chapter, the end of my life chapter of my working life is going to be to help people gain real wealth, right? Through creating one of a kind financial plans so that they can live a one of a kind life like my granny did, right? We were poor, but man, we loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Mike, I had a few other questions I was going to ask you, but we're not going to ask because that was like the best way to end the episode. That was so heartfelt. And I'm like, we're going to cap it there. We have the two questions we always ask all of our guests, but that was just a great way to end this episode. But again, before we hop off, we have to ask you because we ask everybody, what is your favorite quote about success?
Uh, Tony Robbins said, "By changing nothing, nothing changes."
I hear he's been successful.
He's a pretty good one to follow, but, like, he also breaks things down really simply, and it's so true. If you're not if you're not willing to change, you're gonna have the same exact life you have, and that's one of the things that we want to Mike Milligan, I like to say, "Be one of a kind," and, like, I want people to know that they're unique, they have purpose in life, and, and you're meant to live a one of a kind life. That's what this world needs. It's what we all need.
Love it. Mike, thank you so much. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
MikeMilligan.com. Go there. You'll find all my socials. You'll find YouTube. You'll find Instagram. You'll find it all. MikeMilligan.com.
Doesn't get easier than that. Well, thank you so, so much for coming on the show today. We so appreciate it. And this has just been so helpful. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, leave that 5-star review. It helps us spread the word to other solopreneurs like you. Share this episode with a friend and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. And we'll see you next time on the Aspiring Solopreneur.